Yesterday, I was terrified. Yesterday, I had one of the most scariest things happen to me in a very long time. You see, yesterday, my mom was rushed to the hospital. I was sitting at my house, just hanging out, talking with my girlfriend, and I get a phone call, and my mom is screaming in agony. My mom's at that time watching my youngest son as I had some work to take care of at the house. So I get in the car and I rush as fast as I can to get to her house before the ambulance get there so I can take care of my son. When I get there, I arrive and the EMS is already there. They're hooking up machines to my mother. She's crying out in pain. And I'm trying to get answers from the EMS and I'm searching for them to tell me something. And they give me a list of things that it could be, and three of them are really, really not good answers. So I jump in the car and I head to the hospital, and the whole entire time en route to the hospital, I drive past the scene where my wife's accident happened. And as we get closer and I'm traveling behind this ambulance to the hospital, I realize the hospital that we are going to is in fact the hospital where my wife died from her injuries of her accident. And this sense of fear and this panic start to come over me, and I start thinking about the totality of the situation and what it's going to be and what I think is happening. And for a minute, I thought for sure my mom was going to die. I was convinced that my mother was going to die. I started preparing myself. I started making phone calls. I started to reach out to family members and talk about this. And then I had to take a moment and I had to really take a breath. And in that moment, I realized that I was not really being present. You see, I was being triggered by so much past emotions and things that had been taking place previous in my life. I couldn't be grounded in the now. I couldn't be present in my circumstances and be really real with myself. So I had to physically, in my mind, pull myself into the now. So if you are struggling, maybe you're watching this and you struggle with being present, and I'm going to show you today how to be present. You see, your mind is going to go to these places. You will be triggered by scenarios and things and situations, and anger and emotion will drive these forces inside of your body to allow you and make you think that this is your reality. But the truth of the matter is we are creators in our mind. And sometimes the way that we create our reality, our beliefs are reality. If we believe that the worst is happening, then the worst is happening. So what I did is, in that moment, I decided to take a deep breath, like I said, and I took a step back and I started observing myself. I started observing like what I was in that situation and what was really happening. I started observing the moment for what it was. I started looking at my thoughts and saying, is this really real, or is this something I'm predicting, or is this something I'm looking backwards towards to create my present circumstances? So I did what was in my control yesterday. I got to the hospital. I checked in as a visitor. I sat my girlfriend down with my youngest son. I registered. I got the name tag, the whole 9 yards, and then I go back to the room. And I visit with my mom, and I ask the nurse prodding questions, and I advocate for my mother's pain, and I hold my mother's hand, and I soothe her in that moment, and I stay strong, for my mom. I don't show her that my fear, because I don't want that to be the reality. I stop producing the anxiety and this is the worst thing that could happen feeling. I stopped that dead in its tracks. And I started to think of, she's going to be okay. Everything's going to be all right. No matter what happens, we will overcome this. Those are the thoughts that I replaced in my mind rather than, oh my fucking God, my mom's going to die. That's what I did. And what happened was I started advocating for my mother's pain. I started asking all the questions that I knew how in the moment to get the answers from the doctor and the nurses that we needed. I sat by her side when she came back from the testing, and the contrast of the CT scan was hurting her so bad. And at the end of the day, we found out that my mom had a kidney stone. You see, and I had never been so happy to hear those words in my whole entire life, because some of the other options that were on the table were very scary. And so in that moment when I heard those words, I knew that I was keeping back this emotion in the presence. And I was preventing myself from showing this moment and showing these emotions, because I thought that it was important for the reality of the situation. And so with all that fear and that bent up and bottled up emotion, I wept. I sobbed. I let the tears flow down my face finally, and I shook out all the emotion inside of me. If you have ever watched a show like on National Geographic, and if you have ever seen an animal being hunted, when the animal is being hunted, if he escapes the predator, if he escapes the predator trying to attack him or her, what happens is when he gets away, he gets up and he shakes his body. And see, what he knows is what we don't know sometimes, is sometimes we have to shake the trauma out of our body. So I literally shook my body. If you ever seen a dog or a bird smack into if you ever seen a bird fly into a window, bam, hits the floor, gets up, shakes off uncontrollably, and flies away. See, animals know to shake out the trauma. Animals know that they have to be rooted in the present. And see, we can learn a lot from that. I knew it was time to be present in that moment. And I observed myself again, and I said, it's time to release this. Because I knew that if I held on to it, it would be a layer created on top of a layer of a trigger that was already there in place. And I shook myself. I brought myself back to the present moment. And then I was present with my mom again. And then I took care of my mom and got her home safely, and the rest of the day flowed beautifully. So if you're watching this right now, and maybe you're in something where it's so hard to be in the present, and maybe you're struggling with the reality of what your situation really is, I ask you to observe yourself. Stay firmly planted and looking down in your moment of where your feet are. Right now, I am in my home. I'm standing before you, creating a video to show you love and light so that you can overcome the struggles that you are facing in your life. That's my present moment. What's yours? Do me a favor, hit down below, hit that like button. It would help me and my channel so much. And also, subscribe to my channel for more content like this in the future. I drop content every single day around 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thanks so much. Have an amazing day and stay blessed.